maybe I could start off by asking you, it must be exciting times for the GE now with this the transformation going on. Can you tell us a bit why you are embarking on this transformation from hard iron big machines into industrial digital company?
Yeah, so I mean, I think, we've always been in our history, 140-year-old company, we've always been somebody that's been willing to grab kind of what's next. If you're in the industrial world today, the nature of the products is one that generates data. Somebody's going to be a leader in terms of the digitization of industry. We think it can be us, right? We think this is the bridge to achieving more productivity for our customers. And so I would say that this is really being led by our markets, and GE has always wanted to participate in where our markets go. So if we want to be a great supplier to Malaysian Air or something like that, we need to be a data and analytics company in the future. So I would say we have no choice. This is an imperative for growth and for the company.
Is this the Microsoft version of the industrial world?
Look, I think there's a consumer internet, right? And that's dominated by people like Google or Amazon. There's an enterprise internet that's really dominated by Microsoft. And there's an industrial internet, and that's wide open, right? And we want to participate in the digitization of industry. So we didn't really think about being a software company per se, but in order to be a good industrial company, you have to be good today at software and analytics. It's as simple as that.
Yeah, to our readers and our viewers, what is exactly is industrial internet?
So again, it's the ability to, so let's say a jet engine now is surrounded by 100 sensors. So a flight between KL and Mumbai is going to generate a terabyte of data. The industrial internet is really using data to optimize the performance of all of the assets in the world. And there's billions of assets. So really, think about the industrial internet as just taking the power of IT, combining it with the power of assets and physics, and will optimize the performance of all the assets that exist in the world.
These transformations have been going on for, I understand, for a few years. If I may ask, what will be the form and shape of GE, say, by 2020?
So by 2020, we want to be a top 10 software company. We want to have approximately $15 billion of revenue, both in operating platforms, software, embedded technologies with software. We're about half that today. So by 2020, we'd like GE to be a top 10 software company.
And in terms of revenue contribution from inside America and outside of the
So
US?
my sense is that the revenue profile will be roughly the same as it is today, with more than half of the revenue coming from outside the United States. Yeah.
How has it been the journey so far, the transformation journey so far?
So again,
what are the challenges that then the...
I think in order to be successful, you have to operate at 3 levels. One is you have to be able to recruit good talent. And I think, we've been doing this now for 5 or 6 years. I think we can recruit really good talent now. The second one is investment in technology. So we've launched our own operating platform called Predix. We build out various, I would say, technical suites around our assets. We've invested in cybersecurity, so technology. And then the third is how you approach your customers. The ability to build a partner network, drive outcomes for customers. And so we've invested at all 3 levels inside the company. And look, I think we probably pivoted the strategy 2 or 3 times. So you're never going to get this right when you start. But I think so far, the industrial internet is just beginning, and we're in maybe one of the lead packs, right? So our future's not assured, but we're pretty well positioned with where this is going to go.
Looking at the impact of industrial internet as opposed to consumer internet on companies like GE and marketplace and consumers that you serve, what will be the biggest impact, do you think?
Oh, look, I think for our customers, the biggest impact is productivity,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I think whereas on the consumer internet, there basically have been a half a dozen platforms, right? Alibaba, Google, Amazon. I think in the industrial internet, there'll be dozens of platforms. So the industrial internet is gonna look different than the consumer internet, I believe. But the outcome has to be productivity for our customers. And I think that's gonna be a big opportunity.
You spoke about people just now, talent. Do you have any? Do you face any challenges in getting people to come on board?
I think we did, for sure.
Yeah.
When we first started, I think, convincing people that we were serious, that we had a strategy was hard 5 years ago. I think now they've seen some successes.
Okay.
I think they're fascinated by the technical challenges, because if you're a data scientist, the amount of data, the unstructured data is vastly different than a social media company. So I think people like the challenge. They like the space. They like healthcare and energy and transportation. So slowly but surely. But we've had to build our own reputation in order to be successful.
We know GE is a very old company, very industrial powerhouse. Started as making light bulbs.
Yeah.
How do you change the culture, mindset of the people working for GE into this new era, this new thing?
I think there's not like one thing.
Yeah.
I think it's a combination of what I would say, hardware and software. So hardware, I think you have to make the company leaner, simpler, fewer layers, simplified decision-making, faster tools. And then software, you have to bring in new people from different cultures. You have to change the way you work. In our case, we've moved the headquarters of the company to Boston from Connecticut. So you're more surrounded by startup culture. So again, I think we're seeking to change ourselves, but we want to hang on to the things that have made us great. In other words, our reliability, our robustness. I think it's a big competitive advantage in the industrial internet. We don't have to look like a startup. We just need elements of the company to be more purposeful, faster, and I think we're aspiring to be a combination of the old and the new.
You are running a company with 300 over 1,000 people.
Yeah.
How is it like running such a big company?
I never really think about it in quite those ways. It's a great question. So we're in 185 countries. In some ways, it's like a small city, right, in terms of the people. I think you have to pick really good leaders. So I think a lot about the people that we put in place. I think you have to have good processes that help hold us together. And I think you have to build a culture of communication, of openness, of transparency. And so I think it's people, process, culture is the only way you can build a business like that. And then I think you always, as the CEO, you have to try to see the world through the eyes of the people who are closest to the customer and on the ground. So when I'm here today in KL, I'm not thinking about all the problems I have back in the US. I'm trying to see the company through the eyes of the team here in Malaysia, so that I can have an appreciation for how they do their work. And I don't want to be a faceless person to them. I want them to know me as Jeff. I want them to feel like they can, that we're teammates. We work together. And I think you have to humanize the company in a very dramatic way.
Is some amount of engagement, direct engagement with
I think it's informality and access. So those two words, informality and access, are really important for a big company. So it's very important that I'm Jeff, that I'm a human, that they know that we work together, right? And maybe they work for, I'm their boss's 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 boss. But when I'm here, we're on the same team.
Speaking of Malaysia, how strong is GE's commitment to Malaysia and other countries in this region?
So look, I think the ASEAN region has been a very strong growth region for the company. Malaysia is a substantial revenue presence, very good customers. We have about 1,400 people in Malaysia. right? So we are big in oil and gas, we're big in aviation, we have a very strong presence. We've got a good operation in Singapore, Indonesia, Vietnam. We're opening up in Myanmar. Thailand is a big region for us. So each part of the ASEAN region, I think, is quite important. And together, it's one of the most dynamic and biggest regions in the world.
Are you a proponent of free trade? Things like TPPA and so on?
Yeah, no, so look, I mean, I'm a globalist.
Okay.
I believe that trade really benefits people. It's very unpopular today, certainly in the US. To be honest with you, look, you know, we're so global. GE can survive whether there's TPP or not, right? But I think it makes our country better. If you're an American, having a partnership with countries like Malaysia that are beyond security issues, that include, you know, economic trade, I think is massively important for the United States. So I think in some ways the TPP debate has really gotten off on the wrong tangent in the US, and we're going to regret it if we don't find a way to pass TPP as a country, not as a company. Yeah.
Maybe one or two last questions. I know you have to go. If I may ask, what do you think what are the most valued qualities in a corporate leader?
Look, I think a good CEO drives change,
Okay.
sets standards, and develops leaders. So I think to drive change, you need a combination of vision, but you also have to, you know, have all of the structure and disciplines to drive meaningful change. I think you have to be high integrity, both in terms of the world of compliance, but also high integrity in terms of building strong dedication to results. And I think you have to have a good touch for people. You have to understand what turns people on, how to motivate them, how to develop leaders. So I think that's what a good CEO does. Change, builds leaders, sets standards.
Maybe one last question. How do your companies strategize with the uncertainty and the unpredictability given the current times?
I think it's a great question, because I think we live in a very volatile time. I think the first thing you do is you have to be a good risk manager, right? Now, by that I mean, there's always going to be this much risk, and you have to take this much risk for this much reward. So you have to have a good sense of risk. But if you take no risk, you're going to fail.
Okay.
So you have to be willing to take risk and be a good risk manager. The other one is, I think you have to have real conviction in what you believe in. If you need to read the Wall Street Journal or the Financial Times or your publication to figure out what my strategy is, I'm going to fail. So you have to be willing to take criticism. So I'd say conviction and be a really good risk manager.
So you must believe in what you do, as well as you have to be a risk taker.
Exactly, right. But risk, you have to have a good sense of the risk you won't take, but you have to take risk. And look, I believe. You know, in other words, I know what I believe in, I know what we stand for, and I'm willing to do that in good times and bad.
You took over the company 4 days before the 9/11. It must be a very tough time for you.
Yeah, no, look, it was, in some ways, the whole world changed at that moment in time. We recently had the 15th anniversary of 9/11 in the US, and it is so it's like yesterday. But, you know, I think it just made, we entered into a new era, not just as a company, but as a global citizen. Yeah.
Okay, do you have anything, last words?
Look, I just think the fact that Malaysia is growing 4% in a world that's uncertain speaks a lot to the people and the economy. And I think your last question is maybe one that for all of your readers and viewers to keep in mind is that if you wait for things to be perfect, you're going to wait forever. But if you're able to see chaos as an opportunity, everything's out there to be had.